Hi everyone, my name is Terry Westwell and today is Tuesday, which means it's time to discuss our book of the week, which is The Hurricane Wars by Thea Guanzon. First, this is a spoiler-free section, so if you haven't read this book yet, don't worry about it, it won't be spoiled for you here. There will be some spoiler-related things that I want to discuss, but that'll be later on in the video and you will get plenty of warning. If you'd like to join in on any of the discussions, send me your thoughts, comments, or even a short video clip of you discussing the book, then I'll list the next upcoming 4 books in the description below. So I rated The Hurricane Wars 3.5 stars, and I do kind of have mixed feelings about it. Even though overall I did really enjoy it, it was just one of those books that I definitely enjoyed it more the further I got into it. In fact, by the time I reached the end, I did actually go out and buy the second book in the series, so that gives you some sort of indication of how I felt about the ending, but I'm going to be honest, the beginning of it was a bit of a slog. Okay, so quick summary. Hurricane Wars throws you straight into the middle of this long-standing war between 2 powerful factions, and you follow 2 main characters who are on the opposing sides of this conflict. So we have Taliesin, who wields this rare, dangerous light magic, and Alaric, who is a shadow-wielding prince who is bound by duty, power, and his father's expectations. The story's quite heavy on political tension, magic systems, wide-scale conflict, as well as this enemies to something dynamic. It's high stakes, it's very much focused on war, power, and survival, but it also has a little bit of potential for romance mixed in there as well for good measure. I think if I had to compare this to any other book, I'd probably say something like A Court This Cruel and Lovely, Heavenly Bodies, and maybe Immortal. I think it definitely has a very similar epic fantasy, enemies to lovers kind of energy, with war-driven stakes and powerful magic. Though I would say that this one leans more heavily into chaos and large-scale conflicts instead of emotional intimacy. One of my biggest issues with this book was the pacing, especially in the beginning. It really throws you in there. There is a lot of names and places, political topics, battles, magic systems, and it just kind of info dumps and it doesn't have a lot of gradual grounding. It just kind of drops you in the middle of a war and expects you to keep up, and I know that some readers might love that, but for me, it just was a little bit overwhelming and honestly, a little bit all over the place. I didn't immediately feel drawn in because I didn't yet care enough about the characters to fully invest in everything that was going on around them. I kind of wish that the book had started off slower, not in terms of action, but in terms of character introduction. I would have liked to know a little bit about who these people are before being asked to emotionally invest in this war. I just felt like it was the kind of opening that you might expect in book 2 of a series, but not necessarily the first book. However, once I started to get more of a grip on the world, the characters and the magic, I definitely started to enjoy it more. I think it was still chaotic and fast-paced, but it felt more intentional rather than overwhelming. The dynamic between the 2 main characters was definitely a highlight for me. They're both carrying a lot of baggage that is shaped by trauma, war, and expectations, and I can really see how future books can explore that a lot more. I was genuinely interested with where their story was going, especially as their worlds collide more and more. I did like the main characters, even if it did take me a little while to connect with them. They're complicated, damaged, and morally grey in a way that really suits the story. I don't think it yet sort of explores their full emotional depth, but it certainly lays the groundwork, so although the book did feel quite fast-paced, it is a slow burn. It does feel a little bit like a setup book emotionally, even though it was quite heavy on the plot. I am hoping that the next book focuses a little bit more on character development, especially now that a lot of the world building groundwork has been laid. So, as for the question, would I recommend the book? Yes, but with a caveat. If you do enjoy being thrown straight into a fantasy with minimal hand-holding, lots of political tension, and fast-moving plot lines, then you might enjoy this one. However, if you prefer a slower, more character-driven introduction, then it might feel a little like work before it clicks. So, will I be reading any more by Thea Guanzon? Absolutely. In fact, I've already bought the next book in the series. Despite my issues with the pacing in this one, the ending did exactly what it needed to do. It made me curious, invested, and ready to see what happens in the story next. So earlier on in the video, I said that you get plenty of warning for any upcoming spoilers. Now this is that moment, so if you haven't read this book yet, I'd suggest going doing that first, because beyond this point there will absolutely be spoilers. Once the main characters are forced into a closer proximity, the book really does start to shine. I think that their interactions become more layered, the emotional tension finally starts to catch up with that plot-driven chaos from the earlier chapters, but I will say it's still a little bit repetitive and messy. And I will say that I am particularly interested in Taliesin finally going to Alaric's kingdom. I think that her potentially confronting the reality of his upbringing, his relationship with his father, as well as the expectations that are put on him, might open up the door to a richer, more emotional storytelling experience. The war itself, while it did feel a little bit overwhelming earlier on, did feel a lot more grounded once motivations became clear. The ending also worked really well for me, not because anything was really resolved, but because the story finally felt like it clicked. So those are my thoughts on the Hurricane Wars, but let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy being thrown in the chaos, or did you struggle with the pacing like I did? Next week we'll be discussing I Bet You'd Look Good in a Coffin by Katy Brent, so don't forget to get your thoughts and comments in by Sunday the 11th of January at the latest to be a part of the discussion. You can now do this on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram or Discord. The following week will be The Enemy, but don't forget if you do need a little bit longer to read a book, we do now list the next 4 books down below along with the discussion dates. That way you can choose the genre that best suits you and the best time frame to read it in. Thank you all for watching, and if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, it's always appreciated, and I will see you next week. Bye! If you like romance, fantasy, or even thriller, basically anything fiction book related, then I suggest you head on over to the channel's intro video, where you can find out more information on how you can take part in this online book club. We announce books at least 4 weeks in advance, and we accept your bookish feedback in a wide manner of ways. Post your comment below a video, send in a voice note, or even send me a short video clip of you discussing the book. Alternatively, you can just send me a direct message.